Welcome to the Voluntary Option with your host, Peter Yates.
Well, welcome everybody. My Pete Yapel, my co-host tonight, Adam Kokesh, the Voluntary Option, and tonight's show is Misery in Missouri, and we're going to defend Adela Wisdom. We're going to give Adela a chance to come on, tell her story a bit tonight. She's running for office as well. She's running as a Republican constitutionalist. But she has incredible libertarian principles and mind behind her as well. But Adela did catch some charges. This is the second time they've tried to bust her within a year's time. And I believe it's completely politically based. She's under attack because she does fight for freedom of the plant, and to free prisoners. She wants to see anybody that's behind bars for victimless crimes released. And I know she stands by that as well. And I know you do as well too, Adam. That's
absolutely.
It was a big part of your platform, and even when the presidency kind of thing went, where it was like, okay, well, maybe I'll be a running mate for somebody else. That was always something that Adam said. I'm not doing it unless that's my stipulation. I cannot allow people to sit behind bars that just don't belong there, and too many people do. And the hypocrisy I find in the fact that cannabis is an essential, is listed as one of the essentials, but sits on a Schedule 1 I have no purpose list. How can you be essential if you have no purpose? So the hypocrisy that they throw at us. Now, and you people buy into this constantly, and this is what I try to one of my biggest points about this whole epidemic and pandemic thing that they have going on is that they talk out one side of their head and relay something that's completely contrary. And as long as they put it on the little square box, everybody buys into it and just believes it, and it becomes gospel. And it's tearing, they made it racial. Let's make this racial now so that we can get that, unrest going. But now it's really to the point where people that truly care about other people and like other people are fighting amongst each other, are unfriending and saying horrible things to each other because they're being, because they have different views. Now, I have lived.
Well, it's not as simple as that, Peter. If you don't wear a mask, you killed my grandma.
Well, I know that, but I haven't wore a mask. I haven't been sick. I haven't been in contact. I've watched hundreds and hundreds of people. Now, Walmart, I heard now, is going to take, and on the 21st or whatever day it is, the 20-something, you have to wear masks. It can't be that big a deal if you got to wait 4 days. In my opinion, why would you have to wait 4 days if it was that big a deal? And it's not like The Walking Dead, y'all. It's not like The Walking Dead out there. People are not walking around in trances and sick and sneezing and coughing and not being able to breathe and falling out on the street. That's not what's happening here. It's just not.
But people are weird.
Yeah.
People are weird. And what you pointed out there, Peter, the divisiveness around this is very, very deliberate. And it's like only in 2020 America could our government tell us that weed is essential, but going to work is not.
Right.
Right.
What? I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. It makes all the right sense. We're running out of change. We don't have any coins. How are we going to survive? I'll pay the even dollar. I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. But to switch us to a cashless society and continue to listen, the whole thing has been set up. Look at California right now. Newsom has got an order for every adult citizen to be injected with all 72 of the vaccines. That's everyone. You inject a senior citizen with 72 vaccinations, and watch how long they're even a senior citizen. I mean, it's not going to be a pretty thing. Licenses are being revoked. $1,000 fines are being imposed. I know that Ohio just came out with today. I just saw a friend of mine post that the governor of Ohio says you can't even go outdoors without a mask. Listen, that society doesn't need to exist, and they are. Why they wasted billions of dollars on facial recognition to cover them up so that it doesn't work is beyond me.
Oh, they're testing it now that they can do Face ID through through your mask, through your upper half of your face.
Well, it's all crazy. But again, we're to a point in time where we're looking at where all of our information comes, all of the rules we have to follow come from, and to make a statement. And listen, you know me, end prohibition, make cannabis like grass and everything else that grows out there.
Hold on a second, Peter. I've heard from a lot of new libertarians or baby libertarians out there some of these silly phrases like, I want cannabis to be as legal as tomatoes.
Yeah, and
then I look at that and go, wait a second. Do you know how many forms you have to fill out and taxes you have to pay and regulations you have to follow in order to grow tomatoes in America?
That's why I say grass and trees, because they grow freely without any regulation. You can do whatever you want with it. Something that is this essential. Listen, we can get high on anything, folks. Dandelions we can make wine from, but we're not out there regulating and throwing people in jail for making dandelion wine. I mean, so why can't we take the most healthy substance that's ever been on this planet and just free it so that people can start to reach a point of homeostasis?
So Helen writes in her comment there, are the proper hazmat receptacles going to be put in place then? Because I am personally sick and tired of masks and gloves thrown on the ground. Yeah, just another little weird side effect. Of course not. But one of the stories we covered with Adam versus the Man today was there's a company, BioVisor, VYZR, that is making a bubble that you can wear, it's like a hazmat suit headpiece with a shoulder mount, so you walk around with your head in a bubble. It's and it's I know you want to face palm that, but I made the call months ago. Like, this is the worst they can make it. Right? At some point, they can bully us into hazmat suit world. And I don't mean to diminish the significance of that, but there is we do have kind of a limit on this with current technology. And one of my little fun side conspiracies is China came up with all this so they could sell us cheap hazmat suits and PPE made in China. As soon as this happened, I get my book, this book printed in China. My printer emailed me to say, hey, you know how Trump is saying he's having trouble sourcing N95 masks? We have a bunch of them in a warehouse here. You want to buy them? They're 20 cents each. We'll get them in a shipping container for you right now. And you go, I can import masks, but the U.S. federal government can't manage this? Really? But if they keep going with here's my big prediction on this. If things keep going the way they are now with the lockdowns and shutdowns, or they get worse, by the end of the year, you'll be able to buy a pretty complete hazmat suit kit for about $20 at a gas station. And it'll have a little bubble thing. Might not be the whole fancy shoulder harness headgear bubble, but you'll have something. You'll be a full mask protection. You'll be able to get the top. This is and the pants and little booties and gloves and stuff like that, because they're cheap. They're going to be busting them out. And if that becomes a thing that every American has easy access to a hazmat, what can they impose on us? Really, you have to stay 6 feet apart, or you can't go to work. Really, I can't go to work. I'm going to get someone sick cutting hair in a hazmat suit. Piss off. Really? They're not going to be able to make it worse than that.
But listen, so here's the plus to this, though. Here's the positive, because we always have to come with a positive side of this. All of you entrepreneurial spirits that have been out there that have wanted Halloween stores open 12 months out of the year instead of just the month prior can now have it out there. And you can make designer weirdo face masks for everybody in America. And we can be superheroes or we can be villains. I choose my own personal face. As ugly as this thing is, I'd rather wear this than anything covering it. And that's just what I got.
I don't know, Peter. It felt kind of cool walking into the Yavapai County Courthouse one day with a bandana over my face like a bandito. Walking into a courthouse. Under normal circumstances, you walk into a courthouse with and this is from now on in America. I mean, really in human history, from now on, You can walk into a government building with your face covered.
I know.
Like,
I know. And before you get arrested,
tackled
right?
through the door that way.
You'd have been thrown to the ground and had put in shackles. But we do have to say, if you are a judge, a bailiff, you're immune because you don't have to wear one in the courtroom or the courthouse, anything like that. If you are the dictator, you could spit your gum in your mask and chuck it in the garbage.
Yeah, we saw that.
If you're a guy speaking on behalf of a defendant, you can't go to the public mic. We'll pin one to your lapel you can talk into and shove it back in a bag so the next guy can do it. And all for sanitary reasons, mind you. But it's out of hand. It truly is getting out of hand, guys. And if you don't find it silly and overkill, I mean, come on, man. With a less than a percentage of death rate, less than 1%. Yes, people get sick. Nobody's denying the fact that people get an illness or a cold of sorts or whatever it is. And sometimes it's bad. But it's that way with every other thing that has passed through this human organism through decades and decades and centuries as things evolve and come through. Every year there's a new strain of flu. More people are dying from that than there are from anything else. Again, we don't know if people are even dying from this thing. They just may have it when they die, and that's what they're saying they died from. So there's just so much unclear. There's so much out there. Walk outside your door, y'all, without a mask on. Take a deep breath. You're not going to fall on the ground. You're not. I live out in it, man. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to not have something restricting the beautiful air I breathe in from the Arizona mountains.
Well, Peter, if it helps to set up our interview today, there's a point that's been coming up for me a lot lately. That's another really big silver lining here, right? In Minneapolis, where George Floyd, Ground Zero, they are talking about defunding the police. We read an article Tuesday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, where they announced that they are doing traffic stops about 80% less than they were at this time last year. And they'll say, well, shootings are up. And they use this to manipulate you to be more afraid of your fellow Americans than of government. And it's really pathetic. But if you define crime properly, and when you pull someone over, there's the threat of death, right? When a cop pulls someone over, it's if you don't comply, eventually we're going to kill you. That's pull over, comply. That's the nature of what that means, what they are communicating to you. And when you get arrested for a victimless crime, that cop is a criminal. And when government is pulling over less people for no good reason, well, guess what? That's a lot less crime. Mm-hmm. And I think that just being able to point out that, hey, cops are afraid right now to pull people over. That's a good thing. That's a positive adjustment. And so while they will try to tell you that crime is up because police aren't out there, it's like, you mean they're not committing under color of law crimes? Right, well, great. That means the criminality's down by a lot. Right. So unfortunately, in the case of our guests, there are there's still a lot of government crime being committed, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. And with that said, listen, everybody, tonight's guest is a special guest. He's a friend of mine, has been for a long time. I want to welcome you tonight from Missouri, Miss Adela Wisdom.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Great. And Adela, listen, before we get going with you and get talking to you, I want to give you a few minutes because you are running for office. And I do want to give you the full screen. I want you to be able to address our crowd. I want you to be able to put out any points you want and promote yourself. So please go ahead and take the screen.
All right. Thank you. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. That was a wonderful introduction. My name is Adela Wisdom. I live in Williamsburg, Missouri, in Callaway County. I am running for Congress for United States Representative of the 3rd Congressional District of Missouri. I am a constitutional Republican. I am a firm believer of my Constitution. I'm also a federally recognized Native American. I do questions and answers on all sorts of topics and issues. It just so happens to be that I am a cannabis judicial reform advocate, and I know that cannabis for medicinal purposes is $1 million crop. but industrialized hemp is $1 billion crop. And so I just want to bring jobs and economic security and allow Missouri farmers to be the #1 industrial hemp providers, just like we were during World War II for the United States Navy. So if you want to learn more about my campaign, go to my website, adelawisdom.com. If you have any questions, email me at adela.wisdom or adela.wisdom@gmail.com. And my phone number, 573-310-9125. I'm fully transparent, so I'm an open book. Anything you want to know, I will happily answer. So bring me back to y'all. So I'm rocking my eagle feathers because it's been a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And just like these eagle feathers, cannabis is a religious sacrament for me. As I said, I'm a federally recognized Native American, and for most people, this is a felony. I also have an entire bald eagle carcass in my freezer. But because this is such a sacrament to me and it's part of who I am, my great-grandmother walked the Trail of Tears. And so it's a special gift for me. And it's ironic that I am going through this because cannabis sativa L is a controlled substance that's highly addictive with no medicinal value. Yet peyote, which is on the same schedule, I'm allowed defense for. So if I could set some precedent here in Missouri, I'm all for it. And I want to bring up something that, we talked about a little bit. Oklahoma is just became an entire native land. And if I was just right over the border on a neighboring county, states would have had no jurisdiction over me.
Adela, it's a crime in general what you're going through, in my opinion. Every day, Helen and I fight every single day of our life for victims' rights and for patients' rights. And I personally believe you don't even have to be a patient or anything else. The cannabis plant is the cannabis plant, and it's only here to help us. And I don't believe anybody should be kept from it in any way, shape, or form. But like you said, hemp is $1 billion industry. There's nothing we can't do with hemp that we aren't already doing with everything that's poisoning the earth to begin with. So I'm glad that you're still advocating for it. I mean, you've been doing this for years. I mean, this hasn't been just since you've been to Missouri and started your life there. You've been an advocate for this plant for a long time.
Yeah, for a better part of 20 years, I've been traveling the world advocating for it. I've been to Australia, I've been to Canada. I even had the opportunity to speak at the United Nations on UNGAS on 420, advocating for judicial reform. I have found over 80 people, both on federal and state charges, that are serving life without the possibility of parole. I've been directly involved in prison interviews and campaigning and getting bills passed to get inmates released. And it's horrible. Like every 36 seconds, someone in this country is arrested for cannabis. And we have a 99% nationwide plea deal. So people are more likely to take a plea deal because they're facing horrendous charges because of bad, unjust sentencing guidelines. That people are terrified, but that's what the judicial system is set up to do. It's set up to scare people, to terrify people. I want to bring this back into your all's introduction because I like to keep things with what you're passionate about. And you had talked about the increase of violent crimes that were being told, which is ironic because we've been in shutdown. But the federal government is giving money to the state of Missouri via a Legend program to go after violent criminals. The last I could tell, the drug task force in 2014, that's the last I could tell from the Highway Patrol, got $7 million. But we have 7,000 untested rape kits that the Highway Patrol can't test because there's lack of funding. Those are crimes that have victims, and I'm facing a decade. And there's people out there that are rapists, that are violent, and the Highway Patrol is choosing not to go after. But yet we're getting federal funding yet again to go after what they're alleging are violent crimes. But at the same token, I'm rated. Now, it wasn't just some people coming. I'm talking Mustang Task Force, National Guard, local law enforcement officers, flying over drones. They're bringing ATVs into my property. They use Jody Pichelle, the assessor's office, to merge 3 parcels of land that I have so that their warrant only incorporated 1. It says commonly known as, well, my address is out there, 9942 Shran Lane, but the property they raided is 9969 Ginny Lane. They didn't even have a warrant when they raided me. They held me in a car for an hour until they could get one. And ironically, it's the same officer who signed my warrant the first time with no evidence seized. He thought, ha ha, funny, let's write 420 on her paperwork. So I've made somebody extremely mad. I was raided right after I announced I was running for Congress because, to be honest with you, they're terrified. The DEA is 100% asset forfeiture funded. They are scared of change, and they know somebody like me who's intelligent and who's smart and who perpetuates what they think is a stereotype until I open my mouth. They're scared, and I know that. But in my town, go on. Sorry, I was just talking.
Well, Adela, you sound like the perfect prototypical Republican Party candidate / activist. I mean, surely the Republican Party leadership in Missouri must love you. Can't you get them to pull some strings and make all this legal crap go away?
No, they asked me to drop out of the race.
Oh.
They asked her to come.
Shocking.
But I've been embraced by other parties that have asked me to run on their platform. But I want to say something that a lot of people aren't going to want to hear. And it's called the truth, right? Do you really think that I would win on any other platform in District 3? Like, let's talk about the truth. Okay. I'm not going to win.
I think winning is having an impact, not
it is having an
necessarily
impact.
winning the race.
Yes.
And I've run as a Republican and as a Libertarian, and I got to say I had more of an impact running as a Libertarian than I did as a Republican. And we look at cases like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or even our Libertarian member of Congress, Justin Amash, and they had to thread some needles. And if you want to call Rand Paul a Libertarian, it's a bit of a, he doesn't even accept that term lowercase for himself anymore. You really, I don't think you're going to be as successful if you're not able to tell the truth and stay in the race and at least have the administrative cooperation of the party that you're running with.
One of the issues that we have here in Missouri is that it's not an open ballot per se on our primary. So you're going to have to pick the party that you want to choose. It's not open. You're not going to get the choices. So 70% of the people going in my district are going to pick a Republican ballot. That's straight out the way it is. And if I was going to run on any other platform, to be honest with you, I'd probably run as a constitutionalist, just so that I don't have to worry about these party lines. But I wanted to bring something else up that you talked about before. You talk about mask. Well, I got a whole other version of mask when a plainclothes officer comes onto your property with a ski mask, sunglasses, and a hat pointing a gun at your face. And so we want to talk about police violence, and we want to talk about that. Is there ever a time where it is justified for law enforcement officer to point a gun at somebody's face because of a plant? And I'm not being charged with cultivating. I'm being charged with manufacturing of a controlled substance. And that's because they want to perpetuate the rhetoric and propaganda, because my charges are equal to a meth lab.
Right. And they do that every time. We know that. We see this in every case that happens. I mean, I even look at, like even small case in comparison to, what they found. You go to Ohio to Glenn Killing and Peggy Kimmel, 2 grams they give away to someone that was in need, and they get busted, and you're talking 50 years each for it. But I mean, it's ridiculous that there's any involvement at all. But they didn't have guns in their face like you did, though. And this was like a true raid at your property, correct?
Yeah, for the second time. Ironically, the first time I was raided was on Constitution Day, September 17th, 2019. And you know what? One of the things I find interesting is the helicopters flying over. They're obviously violating my 4th and my 14th Amendment rights, my reasonable expectation of privacy. They're using high telescopic lenses. They're zooming in through my property. And yet they rate, like, there's been, I would say, $1 million. I kind of lost my train of thought. There's probably been $1 million that has been spent on this. There was a gentleman here in Missouri, Stephen Sutherland, who a friend asked him if he could buy some cannabis, and he told him no, and he turned him into the cops. And he fought his case for 5 years They sentenced him to 10 years in prison, and he didn't make it a year before he died. And what I found when I got arrested was that there was not a medic on the weekend. So despite the fact that I take daily medication, they weren't going to be able to give me my meds on the weekend. They were going to charge me $15 a day to give me my medicine, $45 every time I gave them medicine to process it. So not only were they not able to substantiate taking care of like my meds, they weren't able to just take care of me in general. They left the door open when I was naked in front of male inmates and in front of male guards. They patted me down in a clear nightgown without giving me clothes in front of a male inmate that I later found out that was mentally unstable, even though I asked them to take me into another room. I only knew he was mentally unstable because the nurse came out and started making a mockery of him and laughing when I said to her, "Isn't this a violation of your HIPAA oath? There's no reason I should know about anybody else's medical diagnosis."
Well, HIPAA rules have been suspended, as well as the Constitution, since this whole epidemic has started. I mean, let's face it. There is no sense of privacy at all anymore. There truly isn't.
Well, I've noticed a difference here in Missouri compared to what I think would happen in other states. And it's just because I've got the beauty of hindsight. I was 19 years old when I voted yes for Prop 215, and I voted for Ross Perot. And the community support that I would have in California would be amazing. People would be in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
People would be rioting. Here, I'm being victim blamed. And I've never experienced anything that in my life, because by the time they got anything here, all of the propaganda had sunk in. And so you should have complied with the law. You should have done this. If you weren't wasting all taxpayers' money, we could get the rape kits tested. Well, hold your phone. Money is allotted certain ways, and this is gonna happen. I can name Jason Andrews and Paula Huff. Not only were they medical marijuana card holders, they were state card holders that were raided, arrested, and incarcerated. People don't understand that MMJ laws are all bad because they create what we call an affirmative defense, meaning the burden of proof is the defendant to prove they complied with the law. Thus, raids, arrest, and incarceration is valid because I don't get to bring any of this up until I go to a jury trial, which I'm going to, which I want to talk about. I got both my constitutions here. I have a beautiful statue here in this state, which they don't want to honor and they don't want to recognize. It's in the very First Amendment. It's Section 35, and it's the right to farm. That agriculture, which provides food, energy, health benefits, and security, is the foundation and stabilizing force of Missouri's economy. To protect this vital sector of Missouri's economy, the right of farmers and ranchers to engage in farming and ranching practices shall forever be granted in this state. We were allowed, and we were the biggest cultivators of cannabis sativa L for the Navy during World War II. Nothing has changed. So I am the first person to be charged for cannabis after Amendment 2 MMJ laws have passed. I will be the first person to use the right to farm. And why is that significant? Not since after the passing of MMJ, because they said the reason that MMJ didn't qualify for their suits was because it's federally illegal. But now MMJ is part of the Missouri Constitution. How are you going to tell me that it's federally illegal when it's in our own Constitution?
Wait. Are you trying to say that our government is dishonest? Are you trying to say that they don't follow their own rules?
Don't confuse me with the facts when I know I'm
really?
right.
But Adela, as a serious point here, at what point do you just accept that the Missouri State Constitution, the section that you just read, and the rest of the document and the rest of the United States Constitution are really nothing more than propaganda? They don't mean that. They're not held to that. They're not bound by that.
Because they won't.
Hey, give us this power and we'll respect your rights to farm, to First Amendment and Second Amendment and blah, 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 blah. We promise, just give us these powers. Oh, but the powers mean we don't really have to be honest even, and we can still keep the power. So that's what we're going to do. At that point, don't you have to accept that what they wrote down in this Constitution was nothing more than propaganda to get you to accept their authority?
And 100%, I will concur with what you're saying, because my ancestors gave up their lands with the understanding that they were going to get something in return, like their land or another, they were relocated. But I will say this, there's got to be a silver lining, because just this month, even though it's been like decades later, the Supreme Court has finally acknowledged that, yes, the state did in Oklahoma violate a treaty and has gave it back to the people. So I guess it's going to take fighting. And if we just sit back and be like, okay, fine, just do what, then where are we? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Do I just go, do I plead guilty and be like, okay, I'm going to prison, or do I fight this? And when do we say, okay, and how do we take it? Right? Because this has been going on for a long time. And it's not just been since the creation of prohibition. This has just been going on against people, you know, for anything they could do, for being pagan and worshiping more than one god, you know, for worshiping an animal or the moon. So it's definitely happening on various levels. And I think that's why, like what you were talking about in the very beginning, there has to be a time when we start taking personal responsibility. When is it going to change? When somebody goes to my jury and actually exercises jury nullification, when they start taking civil responsibility for themselves. It's not just the book that's going to grant me rights. You're right, because if I don't use it, I'm going to lose it. And that's what's happening all across this nation. People aren't exercising. Why didn't you let them search your house if you didn't have anything to hide? Because once I give them that right, I lose that right. And we need to remember that. And that's why it's not just about, okay, been bad, or that may have been written, but we need to stand up, right? We stopped burning people. People broke laws and didn't sit in the back of the bus and married somebody who has a different pigment than them, or has the same genitalia as them. People finally started just coming forward and saying they don't care. And it's going to have to be that, and it's going to have to be waking up. But there has been so many years and generations of rhetoric and propaganda. You know that. And it just has to start with planting the seed. I did not mean that as a pun.
Right. We have to be the beginning of that and the end of it. I agree with you 100%. I totally agree with you on that. If we don't stand up and we don't make the point, then no one's going to do it for us. Honestly, it's just not going to happen.
And I made a joke the other day on social media about, I was saying an interesting story about something that happened with Paris.
Hold on, that's not allowed. That you can't joke about Corona. I'm gonna have to, not on this channel, Missy.
My attention span is like this, so I'm gonna forget the whole story. It was more just like I got up on stage in Canada and I was talking about, we have a couple of Canadian pot prisoners serving life. And I was saying the Cheech and Chong era is over. The time for joking is done. We needed to get our foot in the door. So be it, we did. But to keep making a mockery and just even commercials where they got this stuff where they're wiping themselves down so they could go to their parole officer and not smell like pot. That's not funny. And the fact that we continue to perpetuate it as a joke, and stoners as somebody who are less than, but we got Olympic gold medalists who have admitted to using cannabis. We need to stop.
That reminds me, I need to do my training for the day. I'm going to be trying out for the Olympics.
Are you?
Thank God we're on our own drone.
Are you committing are you being federally disobedient?
He isn't, because he's a card holding.
It's still federally disobedient. Well, actually, for the purposes of today's show, I'm going to be smoking tobacco products out of this little glass pipe that you might incorrectly assume is only for cannabis use. But no, I have. If I were smoking cannabis, it would be legal under Arizona state law with a medical card. Although I also am a member of the Okaloosa Native American Church, as someone who doesn't claim any ethnic affiliation, just the religious affiliation. And I use that in part to defeat 4 drug felonies and a misdemeanor in Texas earlier this year with the religious offense. And to be clear, I beat the charges and they were charging me with 4 felonies and a misdemeanor. The misdemeanor was the cannabis possession. The felonies were tampering, mushrooms, cocaine, and DMT. And I beat it all down to pretrial diversion, which basically came out to a $180 fine. I call that, if I was a lawyer, I'd be like, yeah, I'm the best lawyer in the country. Screw you. I turned 4 felonies and a misdemeanor into a $180 fine. You know, that's less than my client had to deal with in the bullshit of showing up to court 6 times to make that happen. But as my client, I will say I am a great attorney.
You're fired.
You're hired. I'm surprised that you haven't gone that route of applying that pressure when you're on much more solid legal ground to do so than even I was.
Haven't even had a chance to go to court yet. Haven't even been. I go July 31st to my bond hearing.
Oh, okay.
Do you have an attorney, or are you defending yourself?
I do not have an attorney. I cannot afford one. They want $25,000 cash up front for both my husband and I, and they won't represent us both. And it's because I'm an advocate. You already know I'm going to jury trial. And you would think that somebody who might have a little heart and actually step up and be like,
Let's
wow.
not forget your husband Aaron's facing charges too. Aaron's facing charges too. Is he facing the same charges as you?
Yeah. And my husband's been my caregiver for a better part of 12 years. And I was in a severe accident, so I didn't walk for a year, and then I didn't walk without assistance for 4 years. So he's been legally my caregiver, and he's facing charges as well. And it's his property. But it was my grandfather's property, and it was my father's property. And I just think it's horrendous. But I wanted to read something to you that I thought was funny. And will I disappear if I switch out of screens?
No.
Can you see me still?
I can see you, yeah.
Okay. So there is a statue. It is 263.250 here in Missouri. And it is it's under
one of my favorites.
Insect pests and weeds. Marijuana plant to be destroyed. County commission to destroy them. When 263.2501, the plant marijuana, botanically known as cannabis sativa, is hereby declared to be a noxious weed, and all owners and occupiers of the land shall destroy all such plants growing upon their land. Any person who knowingly allows such plants to grow on his land or refuses to destroy such plants after being notified to do so shall allow any sheriff or such persons as designated by the county commission to enter upon any land in this state and destroy such plants. But 2, entry to such lands shall not be made by any sheriff or other designated persons to destroy such plants until a 15-day notice by certified mail shall be given to the owner or occupant to destroy such plants, or a search warrant shall be issued on probable cause shown. I don't know what I did wrong.
So they're supposed to give you 2 weeks notice before they come and even try to bust you.
And no probable cause is granted simply by seeing cannabis sativa. Yeah. So I have been like inundating myself with laws and more laws, but I'm going to try to go a step further and see what laws were on the books during World War II, because you know as well as I do, people don't erase laws. They just write new ones.
Right.
Well, you know what? There's like, I don't know if you guys have the same fantasy mindset as I do, but as soon as I hear this, my fantasy is, wait. We could get drones to drop little baby cannabis plants in little pods in the backyards of police officers, and then say, look, that guy's got marijuana growing in his backyard. You got to raid him. At least the snake, if it eats its own tail, it can't hurt the rest of us.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I wish, that were true. There was a gentleman who's a state rep who just got arrested out here in Missouri for voter fraud. He registered himself at like a UPS postal box and registered to vote a couple different times. And then our lieutenant governor is being looked at by the FBI under federal investigation, something about an ambulance. And at this entire token, I'm facing a decade. My husband and I are facing a decade in prison for a plan. So, and on a personal note, you might remember this, Peter. time you were here, it was right after I was raided. I was in the middle of adopting. I'm 43 years old, and my
Yes.
husband and I don't have any children. And I was adopting through the Cherokee Nation, and I have to pass a federal background check, which, because of this ongoing investigation, at the time I was not able to pass. And now with this investigation, with charges being brought on me, I will not pass, and I only have until I'm 46 years old. So
See,
it does a
that's
lot to people. It does. It does a lot.
Yeah.
It affects
They
a
don't
lot.
understand what they're taking, Adela. Adela, when they're taking from people, they think that they're taking weed and taking you off the street. That's what they think they're taking. They do not understand what they're literally taking from people. They're taking their lives, their existence, their families, their, and again, where's the victim in the crime? In this person's own home. It's the only place that it exists is in your living room.
Well,
that's where the victim lies.
It's destroying
if I may ask about.
Okay, go on. Is destroying a plant a crime? If a tomato plant is growing on my property and I destroy it, is that a crime?
I don't.
So
I don't know.
I'd like to know kind of how things are with this particular police dynamic in Missouri. As you know, all around the world, the coronavirus is the excuse to do whatever you wanted anyway. I mean, you want to sit at home and be a bum and say, hey, I can't go out because Corona. You can do that now. You got an excuse. You want to print more money like the federal government is doing with $9 trillion of liquidity, Federal Reserve System, yada, yada, all of that. And with cops, like in Minneapolis, as I mentioned earlier, they're not doing traffic stops right now. And mainly that's in response to George Floyd riots, protests, the reaction to that. But there are a lot of places, too, where police took this as an excuse to get cool. And I should say to be cool, not get cool.
Get cool.
That's it. They're still ACAB, but they're at least they're not as B as they, they're not as bastardly when they have the excuse. We didn't really want to do stop and frisk. We were kind of doing this reluctantly for the paycheck. With coronavirus, I can still get the paycheck, and I don't have to be as big of an a-hole all the time, right? So there's something that, there's, I think, a huge positivity to that. But in Missouri, obviously maintaining the facade of the police state, as it is known there, is more important than that. Have there been any shifts in enforcement? Do you see any sort of corona opportunity in this?
I do, and I just want to go with this, right? It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his paycheck or his salary depends on him not understanding it. And that's what we're going through. So, as I mentioned before, our response to this pandemic is increase federal funding and increase more law enforcement. Our Governor, Mike Parsons, just announced that they're increasing law enforcement nationwide, and we will be going hardcore after violent crimes. That's our response to this. Arrest more people. And ironically, let me say this. Missouri is the #1 for women's incarceration in the nation. We have more people, more women in prison in Missouri than any other state. 70% of all women incarcerated in Missouri are in there for drug offenses. We have a 70% recidivism rate, right? So 1 in 3 women who get arrested in the world is in the United States of America, right? Because we have 5% of the world's population, but we house 25% of the world's incarcerated.
And of course, with women, wow.
You're more likely as a woman to get arrested in the United States of America than any other country.
Wow.
That's scary. It's very scary.
I knew that it was more than any other country by virtue of being an American, but I didn't know it was particularly like that. And it makes sense that the viciousness of when you ratchet up the viciousness of the police state, eventually you run out of dudes to make victims of, and you have to make victims of women too, as unpopular as that may make you.
Why though? Because women are 50% of the population, and we created prison towns where towns solely exist for a prison. And we have those all over Missouri. Unfortunately, Fulton, where I was took, is one of them. That town wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the jail. As a matter of fact, we also do all of the drug testing in the state, in where I live. So that's job security. And so they're like, the way that you're treated, they can't see you as a human. And that's why they were so vicious to me. And they had to really break me down, or attempt to, because I just kept coming with them. I was like, I understand you can't see me as a human, because I won't take my clothes off for you. I barely take my clothes off for an officer, but I'm supposed to take it off for a 20-year-old girl because she's a guard, and I'm supposed to spread my butt cheeks and cough. Are you joking, right? I told her I can't do that. I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to do it. And then they just don't want to hear it. And she's like, hold your boobs up. And I'm like, no, I'm not fondling myself for you. I'm not touching myself for you. I'm not going to subject myself to this degradation. It's horrendous. And it's all in the system. One of the things I talk about all the time, I always tell people this, and it's called the truth, right? Everybody in that courtroom except for you is paid. Not only that, they're all paid by the same governing entity, whether it's the cop who writes you the ticket, whether it's the attorney that you hire that's licensed by the state, or the public defender who's also paid by the same governing body that the prosecutor and the judge is paid for. The judge works for the state, the jail or the prison that you work to, and all the people in there work for the state. All the fines that are assessed to you go to the state. You see, the system is set up to benefit the state. Because if it wasn't, if there was fewer arrests, it wouldn't be good for their salary or for their pension, right? Or for the retirement. That's why we have privatizations of prisons, where judges and attorneys have stock in the prison. It wouldn't be good. But just like in a lottery, right? Oh, somebody won. Somebody gets justice. And that's just to help create the illusion that people are there to protect and serve. But in reality, they're not. And that's what people need to realize, that if people started going, if we did a nationwide not guilty day, the system would crash. If nationwide everybody set up on a jury trial, it would crash. The system does not have the means to make sure that your civic and civil rights are not violated. I guarantee they couldn't get you to a
feel,
Sorry,
do you feel right now that you are innocent until proven guilty, or that you're completely guilty and need to prove yourself innocent?
I am completely, it's called an affirmative defense. I am completely guilty, and I need to prove either that I complied with the law or I have an exemption to the law. Like a medical necessity defense or a religious defense. Absolutely. If I was innocent until proven guilty, I wouldn't have needed to be paid to get out. As a matter of fact, those officers did not need to take me to jail. My charges were literally a ticket in an infraction, a notice to appear. One of them was a misdemeanor. How is a misdemeanor the same bond as a felony? $4,500. I spent $900 to get out of jail because I needed to, because my life depended on it. So there's y'all heard of Robert Randall. I talk about this beautiful gentleman all the time. You know who Robert Randall is? He was the one that sued the government and created the IND program. It's this gentleman right here, Robert Randall. Like in the 70s, he was raided. He sued the government. So it states that if Mr. Randall did not break the law, he would go blind because he suffered from glaucoma. It was an act of necessity. He reached deep into the legal foundation of our system, to the English common law and the Magna Carta. He spoke about the tenet of necessity in those instances in which one must break the law, because to do otherwise would bring greater harm upon the individual than the law itself was striving to prevent. So despite how people see this and despite how they want to spin it, I don't deserve to be in prison for a decade. I never deserved to be arrested, nor did I deserve the injustices and the violation on my persons that law enforcement officers did to me. There was no reason to point a gun at my face. And I can't get past all of that, you know? Sorry if I talk.
I completely agree. There's not 1 second of time you should even be talked to about what you've done, let alone thrown in jail and treated in an inhumane way. And that's just not right. It isn't. It happens every single day, though, and people don't realize it. And Adela was talking about 10 years. I mean, gosh, there's guys like Craig Cecil that just got out. I mean, he's still incarcerated, still faces the same charges. Don't everybody get that twisted. He's home on house arrest, but at least he's not in Terre Haute any longer. But he's there for life without the possibility of parole. Folks, and this is for pot, man. You know, we're not talking about, you know, mass murderers. We're not talking about, anybody being harmed in any way, shape, or form. We're talking about a freaking plant, and these people are
We're not
talking
even
about years of their life.
we're not even talking about weight in my case. We're not even talking about product. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about an alleged 20 or so cannabis plants. I don't know.
Well, we had a comment. We had a comment earlier. We should acknowledge from someone saying that you might be better off with representing yourself rather than an officer of the court representing you. That was Casey Cush. So what, Jim? If you get that other comment up on now, we'll get to that too. It said the voluntary option. That the only reason prohibition is still alive is because they know exactly how much the plant will fix on a world level, and they do not want that. Yeah, they I mean, it's kind of like letting a cat out of the bag as slowly as possible as it's clawing you, holding onto the bag. But yeah, they are trying to just there's plenty of money to be made by all the corrupt interests behind the drug war just by delaying its end as much as they can.
I appreciate you handling this all with class, though, and our sympathies go out to Aaron too. I know he's facing the same thing you are. It's gotta suck every single day to have to fight this and worry that people are going to be intelligent enough to understand that not all law is good law, and that they have a right, if a law isn't good, to understand that if a person isn't morally doing anything that's going to hurt, harm, or affect anyone else, that they shouldn't be punished for it. And jury nullification is something that people truly need to be educated about. And we educate ourselves about everything else, I guess, or we follow the rules when we're told to. But when we go to court, we're supposed to be told about this, and we're supposed to have every right as a juror explained to us. And jury nullification is a right of yours. It is your right to make that determination. And I hope somebody wakes up and has the brains to use it in your case, honestly.
Okay, riddle me this, Batman. What's the one state in the United States of America where jury nullification is part of jury instructions?
It's got to be where you are, right?
Give you a hint. It's the live free or die state. New Hampshire. It was governor signed.
They changed it. It's live free or die bold for the voting machines.
Yeah, it was a governor's signature that mandated all jury instructions are the jurors will be fully informed, including jury nullification, and to know that they're protected by a jury immunity and cannot be punished for their verdicts. And that is such a simple clause, and it's such a simple fight that it's beyond me that the cannabis community hasn't really backed this and encouraged governors and started petitions for governors to, hey, sign this in. It's not going to hurt anybody. Jury nullification stopped so many things. We don't know. A lot of states say, hey, don't you worry about what the sentencing is. You just worry about whether they're guilty or not. And that's not per se true, because a juror might not vote guilty if they know that you're looking at a long sentence. They may be like, yeah, they did this, but really they don't deserve a decade in prison, which leads me to what you were talking about with misinformation. So like it happens all the time, Peter. Like the 0.3%, this arbitrary number, which differentiates cannabis sativa L from hemp, it's farce. It's fake. It doesn't exist. And it happened and started in France and in Europe, where a seed company was able to get it to 0.8% and lobbied and petitioned the government to give them like a license, and thus it became a monopoly. And then they got it down to 0.3%. And this gentleman, Mr. Mohammed Alosi from the University of Mississippi, along with several other scientists here in America, thus have created the difference and are putting that in and use the Farm Bill on the federal level to do so. It's a joke, because if you're going to grow a CBD product, regardless if it's 0.3 or 0.4, you're growing it for medicinal purposes. That is cannabis grown for medicinal use. That is not industrialized hemp. Industrialized hemp is byproduct in textiles. So by creating this bureaucracy that's allowing money to be, if I didn't like you, like you had said, which you were talking about earlier, planting seeds in cops' yards and stuff. If I didn't like you and you had a huge industrialized hemp farm and you were growing CBD, I decided, oh, I'm going to plant a bunch of hemp seeds all around your house that have high THC content, and it's wind pollinated. There's nothing you can do. They're going to test you and you're going to fall out of compliance. It's a joke, but people are falling for it and they're paying for it. It doesn't protect you. It really just needs to be dismantled. We need to really remove and repeal cannabis sativa L from the Controlled Substance Act. That is the only solution. The DEA has a fingerprint identification program in the University of Mississippi and has had it since the 70s, where 98% of all cannabis eradicated in the United States of America is feral hemp. And since the 70s, it's tested up to 22% THC.
Yeah.
So this doesn't make sense. Because they're greedy.
It does.
People are taking it because they're greedy and they want money and they only care about themselves. And I'm saying it like it is. The only reason we got to this point was because sick and dying people fought for this. And a lot of other people are exploiting it. We're going to expect that that's going to happen. But we can't forget about those people. And we need to make sure that their voices aren't lost because they're dying and they're sick and they're trying to use an alternative medicine. When we get so caught up and we're like, I got what I want, I got my medicine, and we're not worried about guy who's in a wheelchair or in his house bedridden who can't get to a city council meeting and can't get their voices heard. It's our duty and civic responsibility to make sure that we're advocating for not just ourselves, but for everybody, including children and the elderly. And sending me to a sex shop,
especially
in a tobacco shop to get my license for a controlled substance Schedule 1 shows you how much of a crap game this is. Because I would not be comfortable taking a kid to a sex shop or a tobacco shop to get a medical marijuana recommendation.
My point being is they continually say how harmful and they continually say how federally illegal. Yet if you've got enough money, it's okay. I mean, and it's okay if you've got enough money. And if you've got enough money to pay us to say, oh, well, it's okay for him because he's got enough money for it to be okay for him. I mean, it is. It's a joke. And like I say, again, here we are. Cannabis is an essential, but yet it's a Schedule 1. You have something that is no value to us in any means, way, shape, or form, yet it's essential that you have it. And people believe this double talk crap and bullshit all the time. And what we have to do is, like you're saying, Adela, I'm going to make a point of this because you know me, when I grab a football, I run. I'm going to write the first letter to the governor of Arizona, because that's where I'm residing now, about adapting the clause in which New Hampshire adapted for jury nullification to be a part so that this court system can give you a fair trial at that point in time. Because if people don't know they can save your ass,
fair.
How is it ever going to be fair? Right, and that's right, fair. But again, how is it fair? There aren't 12 of your peers. You pick 12 people like me because I consider myself your peer. I'll laugh the first 30 seconds of them saying what you're even charged with. They'll have your idea.
Tribal court? Can you just send me to tribal court?
There you go. Exactly. And that's another way to look at this.
You'll never have a jury of my peers. There will never be a jury of my peers in Callaway County. Never. There will never be a jury on my trial.
Based on that recent Supreme Court decision about Oklahoma being determined to be under federal jurisdiction for criminal persecution on any land that is considered original Native American territory by treaty, are you concerned that this might actually result in worse conditions where prosecutions in those areas now are going to be handled by feds rather than state governments, and the feds now have the justification for expanding their authority?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I applauded the guy for being clever. But on the other token, it did concern me a little bit. But then I thought, well, you know what? In Tahlequah, where I'm from, they do have law enforcement. They are dual deputized, because they're federal agents. That's the only way they have jurisdiction, and they take them to a tribal court versus going to a federal court. But that leads to something, because y'all are in Arizona and you should know this. And I'm from San Diego, California originally. Well, actually, I'm from Hawaii, but I was raised in San Diego since I was 12. Did you know that 100 miles from any border in the United States of America from Canada to Mexico is under federal jurisdiction, i.e., every single law enforcement officer in San Diego County is dual deputized as a federal agent. Every single one of them. And at any time, they could be like, oh, you're federal. So when the Mustang Task Force raided me, that's federally funded, they could flip script at any time and be the feds. And I just disagree that they should be using the National Guard for drug raids. I feel like, huh?
Really? I mean, that's ridiculous.
I just don't think that's what people
are. Sent them there. It's stupid. I mean, come on, man.
Well, there's a bigger problem here that we seem to be dancing around out of a desire to be politically correct here. The real problem, I mean, you look at California, I start with California because I'm from there, but I'm legal here in Arizona, Washington, Colorado, and now I can't even keep up with how many states it's legal in. So it's really clear that the problem here is the backwards people of Missouri. Falling for this crap. And I with no, obviously not trying to be collectivist or demean a whole group of people here. I love all my Missouri friends. But there is something to be said that y'all have a higher tolerance for nonsense in states where it seems that a significant portion of the population buys into this propaganda. So, serious question on the bigger scale addressing this paradigm shift that is happening faster in some areas or in different ways in certain areas. Is it time yet to, at least in Missouri, dose the water and just take care of everybody at once?
So on a positive note, Missouri is a Native American.
I said it both ways. I just want to cover all my bases.
That's a Native American way of saying it, just so you know. Missouri. That's my people's way of saying Missouri. Okay. That's beautiful. Well, I guess we planted the seed. I believe a lot of it has to deal with religion, the Bible Belt. And I mean no disrespect.
The religion of statism.
Yeah, it's scary. It's really scary. But I find there's a huge difference because I'm in the middle of the country. I'm really in the middle of Peter, I'm even more isolated than Dolores was. So I am in the.
Oh, I know.
For them to have flown over my house and be like, "Whoa, look at this!" is impossible. It's impossible. I'm not over.
You can't a place without Jesus.
No, and the way you would have had to have come down, you would have to have violated my airspace because the trees out here in Missouri are huge. They're really tall. But I do believe.
Hey, you mispronounced Missouri.
I do believe, though, with what you're saying, that people are waking up because, ironically, Missouri had the biggest voter turnout for Amendment 2 than they've ever had in the state. So people actually were like, we want medical marijuana. It was a bad law. It was written by I think most cannabis laws are written by bad people. I mean, I think Dennis Perone probably wrote the most simplistic amendment that ever went out, People's Initiative, which was 215. And he put something in there that Jack Hare told him to do because Jack was like, dude, we don't really want to take this medical bit. We just really need to fight it. Let's start with teaching people about hemp. And once people understand and know the plant, medical will be super easy to transway into, and it would have been. And so when we created Prop 215, it said, or any other ailment which cannabis causes relief, which is great. And then we could have also put in, don't allow any arrest. And so those are super simple things that anybody could have put in. But it seems like California had it. Okay, what was the first state in America that had any medical marijuana on the books? And in what year?
It wasn't California. It was Alaska.
It was New Mexico, and it was
it was the feds from their limited experimental program from the 70s.
No, it was New Mexico. I think
it was New Mexico. It was New Mexico. The University of New Mexico gave 200 patients cannabis for years, and before the state set them down. In the 70s, we had 30 states with cannabis in motion to go. And every time we do something, it gets worse. Like, here's an example. I helped pass and get on the docket in San Diego medical marijuana. And we passed two good bills. One was for zoning and one was for just the packaging and whatnot. A group of cannabis organizers who infiltrate, because it's like Black Lives Matter. You got people that infiltrate all groups. Well, we had people infiltrate our group, and they did this petition to remove the zoning ordinance. So you had the ability to do it, but you couldn't, the other door was locked. So there was no safe access.
Right.
And when they finally put forth a new initiative, it was horrendous. It was way more restrictive. And I find this to be true. So every time a new state passes something, it's horrible. And I go to these meetings in these other states and I'm saying, hey, what about this? And they're like, well, you're talking about hypotheticals. No, I'm talking about something I've seen happen, because I saw this happen 20 years ago in California. Currently, there is not even a process set up, because I owned a compassionate use center in San Diego called Wisdom Organics. There is not currently a system set up for dispensaries once they open here to verify you're a patient. You just bring in a paper card that you print off your own printer. It's not issued with a seal from the state. And people post them online all the time. I could take your name and put my name and go to a dispensary and use your recommendation for it. They have no idea what a wall of Rex are. You know, where everybody, caregivers out here are charging people to grow their cannabis and then charging them when it's harvested. $250 now. Okay. That is not what a caregiver is. That's not what this law was intended for.
They need to learn about They need to learn about collectives. They need to learn how to do things the right way. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that every time I see a new state come up and say, "Oh, we're gonna have this state's gonna be legal," and I'm like, "Okay, let me read policy," and I read policy, and it's the same policy 10 other states used 10 times before, and why in the world don't they understand that we've done it wrong before?
You want to know
Let's
why?
learn from the mistake.
It's not that. It's not the people, Peter. It's the companies. It's the big multi-million-dollar companies that started in California, that went to Colorado, that went to Washington, and by the time they come here, they have it in such lockdown that nobody can compete, and they are the ones ruling and governing anything that goes through.
I get that. But people can't use that excuse that they can't read. You can read policy and you can vote no. Just because you want legal weed doesn't mean you should vote yes. If policy sucks, policy sucks. Ask anybody in California since 215's gone. More people go to jail in California for weed right now than they ever did. And it's supposed to be because now we have adult legal use. Come on, folks. Let's get rid of the smoke
215
screen.
is not gone.
Let's get rid of the...
215 is not gone. It's not. It's a legal offense, just like SB 420 is. But you have to be willing to fight for it. The only way you raise the people's initiative is to rewrite it and send it back to the voters. That's why Dennis Perone did exactly what he did. He put a people's initiative in just to stop that. That's why SB 420 was found unconstitutional by U.S. versus Kelly versus U.S. They kept it in anyways because people aren't. And I don't blame people. We don't have the money. We don't have the means. It's incredibly difficult and expensive to fight the government. Like I said, people want $50,000 from us right off the bat. I'm not sure why and how. If people don't understand that these lawyers are literally operating. Okay, let me just read you something. And this was written in the 70s. And everybody, I don't like Normal, just so y'all know that. I think Keith Stroop is a horrible man. Normal, which built itself as a public interest group, was in fact a legal referral service designed to deliver the victims of prohibition into the waiting hands of defense attorneys, a lucrative business operating under the guise of social outrage. And to this day, nothing has changed. To this day, nothing has changed. And because of that, we keep supporting and spending all our money on organizations that aren't doing anything. So why I'm running for Congress is because no matter what I've done, no matter how much lobbying I've done, no matter how many phone calls, no matter where I speak, I know the only way to get things changed is to be the person that's enacting the change. I have to get into Congress. I just need the ear of a president. I don't care who it is, Give me a minute to bring a new perspective about asset forfeiture, about judicial reform. Let me bring an outside perspective in it. They're not going to like it. I understand that. But you can't hide anymore, right? We are on a truth based mission, right? An empathy movement, embedded in compassion.
That's what's going to make the difference, though. And again, win, lose, or draw. That's what you bring to the plate. You're bringing that truth, and you're bringing things that are real fights that people have been afraid of for so long. And for what reason, I don't know why. I guess it's money, and I guess it's power, and those that with power and money that so many people are afraid of. But I've never had any of that stuff, so I could really care less, honestly. That's why I fight the way I fight, because I have nothing to lose. I have nothing, I mean, and again, that's another thing you and I have in common. I spoke at the UN as well, and to me, that was a great honor. It was a great honor to do it. But at the end of the day, when I left, I kept going, Jesus Christ, we're the top of the world and everything, and we are so far behind places we're calling third world nations when it comes to intelligence, when it comes to this plan. And it was almost embarrassing, I mean, not like for me, but just for our country, that there are other countries that have said, listen, let's expel these, expel laws where we're convicting people and throwing them in jail for drugs. They're adults, let them make adult choice. If they commit a crime while under the influence, fine, then they're in trouble for the crime. But the crime of putting something into your body because it's your body and you decided to put it in there should never be a crime in any way, shape, or form. It's my body. I take care of this thing. I own it. It's the only thing I own outright. And I should be able to put in it what I decide and choose to put in it or expel from it. That's just who I am, and that's how I believe. And I believe that if other countries are embracing that more, and if they allow people to just be themselves, they'll find less trouble than they actually believe. Again, people that enjoy cannabis aren't out robbing donut shops, after they're stoned. That's not what happens, They're not holding people up for $5 bags, or $10, $15 bags, whatever you got to pay in your area. But so why is it such an issue? It's an issue because of all the good that it can do. And again, all of the jobs that are in existence now that it'll eliminate, but they don't understand the jobs it's going to produce. This plant could house every human being on this planet that's sitting on the street now. And we literally could house everybody that's on the street right now, employ them, have them working in some way, shape, or form when it comes to this plant, because it encompasses all industry. Every industry
it does. Job security, economic growth. I talk to people about that all the time. Redding of cannabis, it's a heavy plant, so you're going to want to do it in a production site there. And then we have so much room out here in warehouses that we could turn around and produce it into textiles, into t-shirts. We no longer have to import any of that stuff from other countries. We can produce it right here. But in extension to that, we can teach other countries how to utilize this important plant and make their country just as productive as ours, because cannabis grows in every continent on this country. And with that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about judicial reform, because as I said, I'm a huge advocate for that. And sentencing guidelines are a huge thing, but also things like dry cases and double sting operations are horrendous. When an undercover cop is asking a gentleman where he can buy a 20 sack, and the guy walks down the street and buys a 20 sack from a cop, and he makes $5 on it, and this guy gets sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, and we find out later that he is mentally disabled and never graduated from 7th grade. That's injustice, and that is a tyrannic government gone rogue. Jimmy Romans fought a state case in Indiana, won, found not guilty. They drove his car around an asset forfeiture saying confiscated from a drug dealer. The feds got mad, decided to charge him because allegedly he was bringing cannabis in from Mexico. They never found him with anything. They looked for a jurisdiction in Texas that said he might have driven through our road, because it's conspiracy, right? From here to there. Anything in between that is a crime. He might have driven through our jurisdiction. We don't know. We never pulled him over, have no idea. It's called a dry case. It's called a ghost case. He was found guilty on a federal level, him and 6 other people, life without the possibility of parole. His sentence has since been reduced to 30 years, He's 46 years old. We call that a de facto life sentence. So not only do we sentence people to life without the possibility of parole, folks, that means death. Let me explain this to you. Charles Manson was up for parole 12 times, I think. Granted, he was denied all 12 times, and this is for murder, right? These pot prisoners will never be up for parole. They will die in prison. Die. Till they're too old, and the government will say, we don't want you anymore. Good luck. But if you can't get a job and you can't maintain security, we're going to come back for you. So I agree. It has to be reformed, but it has to take people on the outside. Because to be honest with you, these congressional members are in it from family member to family, like Duncan Hunter in San Diego, Duncan Hunter Jr. He only got in because people didn't even, you know what? Most people don't know who the representatives are to begin with. And they're not taking responsibility, being knowledge, being fully informed voters when they go to the voters booth. That's why I messed around and thought it would be a joke. Ha ha ha, funny, not really a joke, but like, here, husband, let me put you down as lieutenant governor. Let's just see who votes for you because your last name's Wisdom. Didn't expect to get rated and be like congressional candidate or political candidates go down, and now everybody knows he's running. It was supposed to be like, what name recognition, what power does a name have? It would have been great to win something without spending a dime or even advertising, just to show the power of a name, right? Elect Wisdom. It just felt like it was kind of just a social experiment, you know, and I just thought it would be worth it. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make a mockery out of politics. I totally respect it. And if he wins, which I hope, he'll take the job seriously, because the lieutenant governor's first responsibility is to our elder citizens, and my husband thinks that's wonderful and can't wait to represent the elder community and make sure that we release all nonviolent offenders from Missouri's judicial system. But you know, this war on cannabis is literally a war on the people, and the sooner earlier we realize that, the better. So when someone says, oh, they had 1,000 plants, that obviously wasn't for medicine, and I say to them, where do you get your medicine? Because there's no dispensaries here in Missouri. Where are you getting it? You understand, somebody put their butt on the line because they understood the value of it. Maybe not always about money. Sometimes people just do it because they know how much it means, and these people are doing it. So when they go down and they get raided and they get arrested, we need to come together as a community. Now more than ever, it's really important. We need to take advantage of the momentum that's going on with the outrage, the social outrage about the rogue judicial reform, and we really need to bring change through. So I don't know how long we go. I see you looking over there. I just want to make sure we're good, and you let me know. I'll go with it.
Looking around, my dog's outside. It's the only reason I keep turning my head, because
we got a puppy at the door. I hope that's not. I hope the mic's not picking that up.
I wanted to ask you this, Adela. You're talking about people that are serving life sentences, and one person came to my mind too was Richard DeLacy in Florida. Now, he's serving 90 years, all right? That's a de facto. He's never going to get out. He's never going to see. He's going to die in prison. But Florida, since he's been incarcerated, now has legal marijuana. What do you think states should do, especially with people that are incarcerated, if they do change law? Don't you believe that people that are incarcerated for laws that were from the past but are now resolved should be released?
Well, isn't it, and wouldn't it have been so easy when passing these laws, saying within 30 days of passing this law, anybody currently incarcerated for cannabis will immediately be released and all cannabis charges will be expunged? That's what really it takes.
Exactly.
Once you get that, and like when they pass this constitutional, because Amendment 2 is in the Constitution. It's not just an initiative. It's different. It's in the Constitution. Not all rules and regulations are a constitutional amendment. It's all they had to put in there. That's it. And once they put it in, it would have been done. Nobody.
Yeah, listen.
So here's
to go back to what you were saying before, is that the people writing these are the rich, are the people that are trying to keep everybody else down, and are trying to do that. So don't you think it's in their best interest to not put it in there, because they know they can screw the little guy, because the little guy might not be able to afford to do everything and dot all their I's and T's like they were. And that's their way of eliminating competition, yet still having their hands in the pot.
Yes, and there's also attorneys that are partaking in this, right? And an attorney doesn't necessarily want to see prohibition go away because then they would be unemployed. So they want to make sure that the
Right.
laws they're putting in there currently allow for people to continue to be arrested and incarcerated. Here's an example of a bad law. They put forth a law stating that no one can serve life without the possibility of cannabis here in Missouri. When they did that, they did not make it retroactive. And there was one gentleman serving life without the possibility of here in Missouri. What did we have to do? We created a bill, HB 978, to get this guy out. We literally created a bill for Jeff Mazansky to get him out.
Yep.
Did the governor, did they care? No. You know what they ended up doing? Commuting his sentence to what? Life. Why? Now he was up for parole.
That's
it's a
right.
joke.
Now he's on the street.
Now he's free. Now he's a medical marijuana patient and a cultivator.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Guy Jeff's a good guy. I like Jeff a lot.
And there was Natalie and David DePriest in this state, a brother and sister, and she came to visit her brother one day, and he had 12 marijuana plants in his house, and they went out for lunch, and the manager came in to change illegally. He didn't have permission. He had a deadline by midnight that he was supposed to change the fire extinguisher, so they went in. He saw the marijuana plants. He called the cops, but he said that he thought he saw a pipe bomb on the ground. There was no pipe bomb. He said he recorded it. The phone ended up disappearing. He said it dropped in paint. They never found the pipe bomb, but they continued to go through with it. They hired the best attorney out here in Missouri, $25,000 each. His name is Dan Beats. He's not the best attorney. They go to a bench trial, which I never recommend anybody to. Why would you pay 25 grand to go to a bench trial? What are the odds? This is statistical mathematics, folks. One person or a jury of 12. What's your odds? I think I'm going to go with the jury of 12 because why? The judge doesn't have the option or opportunity to vote with their conscience. They're voting by law. By law, you're illegal. They told her she would never do a day in jail. She never went to a jury trial. She got sentenced to the maximum she would have gotten had she went to a jury trial and lost. 2 15-year sentences. Her brother, 2 15-year sentences plus 7 years. Well, that's ironic considering they had the same attorney. Should have been conflict of interest. They appealed on conflict of interest. One went to they appealed it. The attorney was at the appeal saying, please don't let this go out. It'll ruin my business. Went out anyways. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to have a history of knowledge, of memory. Go to the Supreme Court. They said, you're absolutely right. This was unjust. Vacated their guilty plea. By then, Natalie was already out on parole. Dave was almost out. Vacated their guilty plea. And then the district attorney retried them.
That's the way it goes every time.
It's not double jeopardy, though, even though she already spent 6 years in prison because they vacated their guilty plea. And in her institutionalized mind, she took a guilty plea. No time served. Why? She'd already served the max she could ever serve. So I told her, fight it. Right. You can never go down for anything. What'd they say?
What do you got to lose at that point in time?
Jail.
Yeah, what do you got to lose?
They weren't going to leave her as a free woman. They weren't going to leave her as a free woman. They were going to put her back in jail until she went to jury trial, which you know, and I will know it could take a year, 2, 5. So it's definitely something that only with knowledge and only with going through jury court and jury duty and going every time I'm summoned and just going to learn, do you know this? Most people don't know their defenses have to be granted to them. I could lose my First Amendment constitutional right unless the judge tells me that I have that as a defense. People don't know that. And that's why education on our judicial system is vital, but they don't teach you that. They don't teach you any of this in school. I don't even know who does unless you take it upon yourself.
Government schools don't teach you how to stand up to government?
That's how about that for
gosh.
Irony. Anyways, I wanted to tell you congratulations on your marriage. I did see it, and I thought that was really cool. Y'all look like it looked great.
Too. It was real fun. I was standing right up there when the guns were going off and everything. It was really good.
It looked beautiful.
It was an awesome day. Him and Stan had a beautiful wedding. Honestly, a lot of great people here. We truly
and a beautiful wife. Very beautiful wife. She looked happy and wonderful that day. And congratulations to you, Peter and Helen, on the new home. And finally, like getting a little bit of roots and kind of getting out of where you were. I could definitely tell that wasn't your great headspace, but it seems like you're really happy and you're doing good. And you know, both of y'all have always had my support and I'll always be there for you. And I do really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. I know I talk a lot and I have a lot of information, and I'm a big fan of you guys both, and I do follow everything you all do. So I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, we love you dearly, and you know that. We love Erin as well, and we miss Dolores. Please give her a kiss for us when you see her. I know she's been going through a lot of hell as herself as of late. But listen, you're never too talkative. I love everything that comes out of your mouth because you speak, like you say, your truth, and you have no problem voicing that. You're an excellent and true advocate and activist, in my opinion. There are very few that can even match you when it comes to the cannabis industry. We respect you. We love you. We wish you luck, not only in your case, but your run in November. And
August.
when you
August
do
4th.
get elected, because you have to run under this Republican ticket, remember, you could still always become a libertarian day one in office.
You guys are cute. That's adorable. I appreciate it. Thank you. And everybody, if you want to learn more about my campaign or even my story, check out my website, adelawisdom.com.
Yeah. Hey, listen, what I'm going to do, Adela, is I'll give you like 30 seconds real quick to just one more plug. Jim, put her up. Let her get, so she can get her websites up and let her get everything she wants out there, because I want her to have every opportunity she's got.
Am I going? I don't know.
Go ahead, Adela.
Hey everybody.
Thank
Thank you all for tuning in. It was a wonderful show, and I really am appreciative of having the opportunity to share these injustices and all of these other stories. I can go on for days about people going through this, and this is why I'm running for Congress, because we need to stop this, and we need to make sure that the people are being represented and that the people's voices are being heard. And we need to really get rid of these career politicians. I'm a firm believer in term limits, and bringing change means bringing new faces and new voices. And that's what I'm going to bring to Congress, because I know that I look like a lot of you all, and it would be really nice to see somebody like us in Congress. And so I'm here to be your voice, and I'm here to bring some change. And I just really appreciate everybody's support and understanding through this. And I will be putting out a change.org website soon, asking everybody to sign so that we could get these charges dropped and dismissed. And I'm hoping that I could get some help, and maybe we can get rid of these charges through a pretrial diversion. Look, I write notes. And that I don't have to go through this. And we need to get rules and regulations that are bad took away with an eraser, right? Because the only way to get rid of bad laws is with an eraser, and actually put forth stuff that's going to represent everybody. So I just really appreciate it. Check out my website, adelawisdom.com. Thank you all. Where is everybody? Come back.
Thank you, Adela. We really, truly appreciate your time. And again, if Helen and I could do anything for you, please reach out. Hey, listen, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of having to do interviews like that with people, good people like her, that are, over a silly plant that grows out of the ground. We're looking to ruin their lives.
I'm already against the next unjustifiable arrest. I'm already against the next war. All right. I mean, well, the one other question I would have wanted to ask her was, when you mentioned that there are states or there are countries that have essentially fully decrimmed all substances for adult use, recreational, individual possession, whatever. And I go Portugal, right? And that's the prime example. Are there a lot of others?
Yeah, there was about 9 when I went. I spoke at the UN in 2019, in October 2019. And I spoke and was invited to speak for the United States by behalf of the Swiss government, because the Americans didn't even want to show up. They didn't want to sit back, because it was the Drug Policy and Sustainable Living Agenda 2020. We were so far behind the curve that,
so how long? That's getting at my point here. How long ago did Portugal even fully decrim?
I think it was 2016 or 17.
No, I thought it was longer than that.
I mean, it's fully?
Okay, no, there's a partial phase a long time before that.
Because Agenda 2020 came in 15. In 2015. So the states in which countries in which said that they were going to participate in it at least 9 by the time I was there in 19 were fully decrimmed. They saw literacy rates go up. They saw,
irrefutable successes across the board. Overdoses, everything.
Everything decline that was bad.
Yeah, this is where Portugal is that great success story.
Yeah.
And I just think about the time that it takes. You've been doing this longer than I have. I'm 38. I've been a full-time activist for 14 years or so in one form or another. And I wanted to ask Adela, shockingly, Adela, there's a chance you might not get elected to Congress in 2020,
right,
given present circumstances, given what they're able to do to you, to propaganda. I look at Adela and I see someone who isn't just passionate but committed, who I think has what it takes. And I kind of hate to say, this is how I know I'm a freaking adult now. I'm trying, after 14 years of activism, it's starting to settle in. Hey, buckle up. You're going to be doing this for a while. The wheels of justice turn slowly, and it takes a whole lot of patience and persistence. And when I used to come up with ideas like dosing the water supply of everybody in Missouri or airdropping pot plants, I used to be serious about those ideas. Now I'm not, and I get it. Those are good jokes that you can tell and be like, okay, yeah, it's gonna take longer than that, but 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, humanity dances on. And when you see it like that, you get to just dance along and enjoy the ride. And no, I'm not sick of these interviews. I'm not sick of hearing these stories.
Me neither.
I'm sick of bad cop porn. That's bad indulgence.
One thing
meaningful
I am
stories
sick of is people's fear to choose our party for the fact that they think there's just a complete loss. I still believe that you stand by your morals, you stand by your laws, and you fight for what you want. If I'm not a Republican, I'm not running as a Republican.
It's okay. There's a decent chunk of people within the Libertarian Party who, and it's funny because a lot of us are quick to change our worldviews. Some are slow in certain areas, right? We have a decent chunk of people in the Libertarian Party who got fed up with being an activist with the Democrats and Republicans, and they're just like, all right, screw these guys, I'm going to be a libertarian now. And they're not. They come into the party, and they're the most actively not. They're definitely close to libertarian. They're definitely well intentioned. But then they come and they're like, we're like, oh, all right, we got people too now.
You
huh?
need to read some principles.
Right, I'm very confident that Adela is open-minded and loving and well-intentioned and capable enough that she will eventually find a sort of settled course of confidence in her activism, whether that's with the Republicans or as an independent advocate or the Libertarians. Either way, she's going to be someone worth following and supporting.
Absolutely. Like I said, I knew her before she was married, and I've known her when she was a double fault. And I think her and Aaron were together all that time. But I've known Adela and fought with her for a long time. And in California, the girl was like a superstar. She truly was at that point in time. She worked for everybody and with everybody. And I appreciate everything she's done. She's got a lot of wisdom. It's just not in her name. When it comes to this plant, she has a tremendous amount of wisdom as far as legality and the plant itself. Helen, my wife, wanted me to announce the winners from Can We Talk, our show last night that we had on. And we did 3 giveaways. I would love to be able to announce those winners. I just don't know who they are because I'm doing a show. I don't
Helen,
know.
you want to text it to me?
Do you want to, if Jim has them, Jim, we haven't called Jim on. First of all, let me call Jim on really quick. Jim, can you share the screen with us?
Let's see, do I have it?
Hello.
I like to welcome Jim Freedom every time, guys.
Hey.
He's my producer and does an incredible job on the show.
And co-host of Adam versus the Man is coming, Jim Freedom.
Yeah. And Jim, so what did you think? What did you think of Adela's interview?
I mean, it was a great interview. I think what happened to her was complete bullcrap, obviously, and I'm with you guys all the way as far as, it's something that's a top priority that we need to get changed. I love what Helen was saying about how they're keeping it down, they're keeping it suppressed because of how many problems it could fix. I think that's spot on. The cannabis, CBD, THC, and the hemp industry, all three of them are like a trifecta. They could literally, as far as I can tell, and as far as I'm concerned, it could fix every single problem, literally. And that's not just sounding, you know what I mean? It could literally fix every single problem in society on our planet. Period. It's silly that we haven't fully harvested it and fully used it for our purposes yet, but with people like us fighting the good fight and trying to get it that way, we'll see what happens, right?
But that's why I think it was really important for Adela to be on, that she is running for Congress, that I believe her arrest is politically motivated, because believe me, that's how it's always. With the minute she signs up to be a candidate, she's busted the first time, comes around the turn, they realize how they screwed up with warrants before, so they tried to correct that and come back and get her again. And it's all been a violation of her human rights. She's had helicopters and drones over her property. Which was the last time she stood out there buck naked and told them all, "Hey, you want to see something? Go ahead, look at this." But she didn't know they were there this time. But she really fights for what she believes.
The only thing I would have wished, which is always my tagline anymore, where's the video footage? I want everybody. That's the only thing I would have wanted was video I could have played, because I think that helps put the reality into people's, people that are sleeping. It helps to put the video in front of them of these things, not just to tell the story about it, but to actually see the raw footage of it in action. I think is another level of, education for people.
All right, so quick, I'm going to announce the winners from last night. The first one that we were giving away was the bath salts. And Lori Jean Wiseman, you are the winner of Mary's Creations. I think it's Mary's Creations. Bath salts. And Helen will reach out to you, and she will get your email or your mailing address, and we'll mail it out. That's another natural creation. See, and this is one of the winning things too. Second thing we were giving away was the bath bombs. And Brandy Lynn Mills, you are the winner of the bath bomb, 90 milligram bath bomb. Enjoy that. Literally, pop that in your bathtub, sit back, and let that stuff work on you. I'm telling you guys, these bath bombs are important anyway, because they not only contain the CBD, they contain a lot of 99.9% of them, and I know this one does too. Contains sea salts and or an Epsom salt as such. You have to realize that we as human beings are magnesium deficient. Taking a magnesium pill isn't beneficial because we do not absorb metals through our digestive tract after we get rid of fillers. So the best way to use magnesium, absorb magnesium, is topically. So this is a big help. And 90% of the world's population is magnesium deficient.
You can absorb it rectally.
Yeah, you can. Of course, you can absorb anything rectally. That it probably absorbs better there than anywhere. I'll be honest with you.
Let's be medically accurate. I want to make sure that no one's going to call you on this later. I know someone in your audience is going to be with Peter. You left out the butt stuff. The episode was not complete.
Now we have to. Then the last person to win.
Sorry, I'm thinking about the New York City regulations where they actually guidelines they published in them. Social distance. They had to put this in there. Government makes me think about that staying 6 feet apart includes not licking each other's buttholes.
Listen, I saw a sign when I was in Knoxville. When I was in Knoxville, I was in the city park, or the park just right in the middle. It's a beautiful park. But there's these fountains that pop up, and they just to keep you cool. And there's literally a sign that says, "Please don't enter the fountain if you have diarrhea." Now, you can have anything else wrong. Do not go in that fountain if you have diarrhea. The sign's there for a reason. I don't know why, but I can only guess. Well, our last winner of the hand sanitizer, which Adam just showed, by the way, CBD infused hand sanitizer, is Tammy Sue Haley. And guys, please, Helen will be reaching out to you guys via your inbox or your PM. Thank you for participating. pay attention to the show every week. Can We Talk on Tuesday nights? We'll be giving away something pretty much every week. Hey, listen, guys, too, before we do close the show tonight, I want to remind everybody about patreon.com. And patreon.com is a way for us to keep these shows going, keep production going, to pay the bills. It's kind of the way it is. And you can visit us at Patreon, www.patreon.com/CWT42TVO. And you become a membership level. They range from $5 to $100. The $5, and of course benefits increase as long with your membership package. And the $100 package, honestly, truly, the value of that package is ridiculous. You receive 3 products per mail every month from us, personal products from us each month in the mail. A bar of soap, a CBD infused bar of soap, a facial mask for the women, facial serum for the women, and then I believe it's a bath bomb or something. Helen's got it up, or Jim's got it right up on the screen right now. But that's every month. Every month we'll supply you guys with, it's a tincture. It's a 500 milligram tincture. That's what it is. So you get your 500 milligram CBD. You'll have your all the benefits listed right there for you. And again, they range from $5 a month up until $100 a month. Please visit the site. Keep the production going. Listen, until next week, I want to thank Adam for joining me again this week. I thought it was important that I had him on, especially with all that Adela was going through, and the fact that I believe truly Adela, if she picked by heart, I think she'd pick a different place she'd be running her campaign. But I kind of understand a little bit. But again, she can change parties once she's elected if that's going to make anybody happy. At the end of the day, we'll be here next Wednesday night with Tim O'Connor and Thomas Queter. Thomas is going to check in from his experience in Orlando, and Tim O'Connell's running in New York State. So I got 2 New Yorkers going to join me. I'm going to bring it home a little bit next week and let them guys voice out with the guy. Tom's running also too for Senate. They're both running for Senate, both the guys. So until next week from the voluntary option, I'm Pete Yapel, my co-host Adam Kokesh. Y'all, everybody, have a good one from the Garden of Freedom. Check us out online. Please, man, start to live in a bit of freedom, because your freedom is what really truly matters.